The sports footwear industry, which has produced a plethora of fancy designs and iterations over the past 50 years, has gone from nearly non-existent to having a humongous market size. It is estimated that it will be worth $142 billion by 2026. However, despite all the novel innovations, running-related injuries have steadily increased over the years. They are currently estimated to plague up to 79% of recreational runners within 1 year of training. Yes, you heard right, 79%. Looked at in a different way, it's reported that there are 7.7 to 17.8 injuries per 1,000 hours of running. If we compare these stats to weightlifting, which sits at 2.4 to 3.3 injuries per 1,000 hours of training, or powerlifting at 1 to 4.4 injuries per 1,000 hours of training, we can see that running is about 4 times more likely to lead to injury than these other high-intensity sports. While this video is not directly about injury rates in running, it's important to touch on it because it is usually mechanical strain that causes trauma to the body. And this mechanical strain is most often caused by movement inefficiencies. If the body is not moving optimally, then it is more susceptible to getting hurt. So the focus of this video is on how modern footwear has altered our running mechanics for the worse, and how we can utilize barefoot running techniques to regain the lost efficiency, as well as improve performance as a side effect. So let's dive right in. Research shows that individuals who run barefoot or in minimalistic shoes can be up to 6.8% more energy efficient than those who run in conventional shoes. This statistic, extrapolated over a marathon, would allow a barefoot runner to travel 2.9 kilometers further than their shoe-wearing counterparts, while expending the same amount of energy. There are a few reasons for the barefoot runner's reduction in energy cost. In this episode, we will cover the first. Barefoot runners tend to strike the ground with a forefoot directly under their center of mass. This angle of impact allows for the vertical forces to be converted into rotational forces, helping propel the runner forward. Contrastingly, shoe runners predominantly heel strike, which is a result of the foot colliding with the ground ahead of the body's center of mass. This angle of impact sends braking forces back into the body, which the runner must then work hard to overcome to continue forward momentum. To better understand this concept, imagine that someone is giving you a hard push from behind in an attempt to make you fall forward. The only way to resist this motion is to place one of your legs in front of your hips in an effort to stop your body from falling over. Contrastingly, if you stand stationary and then decide of your own free will to move forward, what happens to your weight distribution? Well, it shifts from your heels to the forefoot. This is because the only way to move forward is to shift your entire mass over the forefoot and beyond, until gravity essentially takes over and you fall forward. The trick to running then is to not try and stop your body from falling forward, like you would if someone pushed you. Instead, it's to try and conserve that forward momentum by striking the ground with the forefoot underneath the body's center of mass. Now, in case anyone was wondering, not all runners who wear modern running shoes actually heel strike. However, research has shown that people wearing thick padded sport shoes are significantly more likely to heel strike. One of the possible explanations for this is that most sport shoes have an elevated heel, which would more than likely come in contact with the ground before the rest of the shoe. Furthermore, soft soles also blunt the feeling of the impact, which would otherwise tell your brain that you should stop bashing your heels into the ground because it's super painful, and rather adopt a different style of running that will lessen the force of the impact. Moreover, that wedge of foam that makes up the soles and inners of all modern sports shoes puts shod runners at even more of a mechanical disadvantage. It makes them less energy efficient than their barefoot running counterparts. Let's investigate. Why are barefoot runners more energy efficient than those who train in conventional running shoes? Let's consider a fact. Almost 20% of the mechanical energy generated from running is conserved by a well-functioning and compliant arch. When running barefoot, the arches of the foot compress and flatten upon impact, causing the 4 layers of muscles under each foot to recoil like a spring and propel the leg back off the ground and into the next stride. This action occurs as a result of a group of sensors underneath the feet, which when exposed, detect the ground and stimulate the muscles of the foot to support an arch. Now, let's put on a pair of shoes and note the differences. Conventional shoes contain arch support. This piece of material fills the dome-shaped gap of the arches. So instead of functioning as a spring, the foot now rolls from heel to toe, and the arches remain relatively dormant. Further, the thick soles of shoes blunt the foot sensors. Thus, the muscles are no longer stimulated to maintain an arch, and they become lazy and weak. The end result is a non-compliant collapsed arch, commonly recognized as flat feet. So now you know why we have an arch. It's not just there to look pretty. It plays an important role in our gait cycle. And sticking on thick soled shoes with arch support prevents these natural structures from doing their jobs. I also want to expand on the point about preserving our sense of feeling with the ground. The more feeling we have with the surfaces we are running on, the faster we can react to it. It is for this reason that barefoot runners have a higher step rate, also known as cadence. If we look at the data from a study published in the International Journal of Exercise Science, we can see a pretty linear increase in ground contact time and step rate from barefoot through to increasing shoe sole thicknesses. In other words, the thicker the sole of the shoe, the less feeling we have with the ground, and consequently, the slower we are able to react to it. But why is it so important to decrease our ground contact time and overall steps per minute? Well, according to the research, increasing steps per minute or cadence can significantly decrease the amount of vertical motion or vertical displacement that the body displays during every stride. This is great for preserving energy and improving efficiency, since a great deal of upward motion has no benefit in terms of moving the body forwards, which is obviously the goal. It's no wonder that faster runners show less vertical oscillation while they run than slower runners. By the way, just as a side note, the optimal cadence for long distance runners is about 180 steps per minute or more. Novice runners, especially if they use padded shoes and heel strike, tend to rate significantly lower than this. Now, there are other benefits to this faster step rate. One is a better stretch reflex from the Achilles tendons and other connective tissues. In order to utilize the elastic energy from these fibers, they need to be loaded and released quickly, just like a slingshot. The slower these actions occur, the more the muscles get involved and assist in the movement. While muscles are important, they are energy expensive. So the more we can shift the load using our connective tissues, which don't use energy to generate force, the more efficiently we can move. Another benefit of having a speedier step rate is that there's less time for ground reactive forces to act on the body. Let me explain. Look at the two graphs showing ground reaction forces during ground contact time when wearing shoes or barefoot. For simplicity's sake, let's say that they both reached equal peak ground reaction forces. However, the shoe runner takes longer to get to that peak after the heel strike and also takes longer to get the foot back off the ground. On the other hand, the barefoot runner with his speedier senses and forefoot strike completes the sequence faster. To know how much accumulative force was imparted to the two runners during each step, we must look at the area under the curve. Now let's compare the two. As you can see, the barefoot runner experiences less total ground reactive forces than the shoe runner. For those who lift weights, we can think of it as time under tension. We know that if we really want to make our muscles sore, we can focus on prolonging the negative portion of each repetition, which increases the cumulative load on the muscle throughout the workout. While this technique can be useful in acute settings in the gym to stimulate muscle growth, we wouldn't want to run this way over many kilometers because it is highly inefficient and it increases the risk of injury over the long term. Okay, let's do a quick recap. Number 1, barefoot running promotes a forefoot strike, which helps to conserve forward momentum and reduces the harmful braking forces often seen in heel strikers. Number 2, barefoot running increases sensory feedback from the ground, which helps stimulate the arches of the feet to act as springs, helping to propel the runner forward. Number 3, the heightened feeling of the ground also increases step rate, which activates energy-efficient ligaments and other connective tissues to assist the muscles during every stride. And 4, increased cadence through barefoot running also reduces the ground reactive forces acting on the body, which is not only more economical, but also reduces the risk of injury. Well, that's it from us today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. But until then, keep on exercising your health. Cheers.